Hey everybody, welcome to Data Umbrella's webinar. I'm going to do a brief introduction about Data Umbrella, and then Daniela will do her talk. And if you have any questions, ask in the chat and we will answer them as, Daniela will answer them as we go along. And this is being recorded. About Data Umbrella, we organize data science and open source events for the community, and we are a nonprofit. This is our team. My name is Reshma Sheikh. I'm based out of New York City, US. Beryl is out of Kenya, and Sangam is out of India. We thank you for helping to make this a welcoming, friendly community for all. This is being recorded, as I said, and so you will find the recording on the Data Umbrella YouTube channel. And we have quite a rich library of, there's a career advice playlist, data visualization, contributing to open source, a lot of the libraries in the scientific Python space, such as scikit-learn, NumPy, Pandas, and such. So check it out. These are our most popular social media places. Meetup is where we post all of our upcoming events. YouTube is where we post all of our videos. We have a newsletter, which probably is not so frequent these days, a few times a year. So if you'd like to sign up for that, our blog, our website, and all are on GitHub. We're also on LinkedIn and Blue Sky. The platform that we're using is Big Marker. And so on the very top right, you'll see CC for closed captioning. So if you would like live transcripts, just turn that feature on. We also have an online suggestion box, and I will share the link in the chat. But if you have suggestions for future event topics, any feedback on this event, if you experience any technical issues, if you'd like to be a speaker for one of our events, let us know. Our upcoming events are on Meetup. Today's talk is pre-review, transforming peer review with researchers for communities. Our speaker is Daniela Saderi. Dr. Daniela Saderi is the co-founder and executive director of PREreview, a nonprofit advancing open, community-centered peer review of early research objects by supporting researchers and experts, especially early career and historically excluded scholars. She earned her PhD in neuroscience from Oregon Health and Science University in 2019, studying auditory processing in mammals, and was a 2018-19 Mozilla Fellow for Open Science. Daniela envisions a scholarly ecosystem grounded in trust, care, and collective wisdom, where knowledge flows freely as a shared inheritance rather than a commodity. You can find Daniela on LinkedIn and GitHub. And with that, I am going to turn over my screen share and my microphone over to Daniela.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I love the Data Umbrella community, and I'm so honored to be here with you all. This is my first time on this platform, so if something doesn't go quite right, I hope you're going to be kind and patient as I figure it out. So let me start by sharing my screen. And I tested this before, so it should work. There we go. All right, can you all see my screen? And yes, okay, thank you. All right, thank you for the kind introduction. My name is Daniela Saderi. These slides have been just freshly put on Zenodo, so that there is a DOI there. I can also put it in the chat later on. And I did add the word all to the title, so transforming peer review with all researchers for all community. I think it is will all communities. I will tell you a little bit more about what we mean by community peer review. Just briefly about me, since I think I'm new to a lot of you. My name is, as I mentioned, Daniela. I have a background in neuroscience. This is me with my ferrets in the lab. I studied auditory processing. It's been a long time ago. I can't even remember, before pandemic, before kids. But I graduated in 2019, and ever since I've been the director of PREreview. And PREreview was a side project that I co-founded with Dr. Monica Granados, who is here on the left of this trio photo. And she's now the Open Science Director of Open Science at Creative Commons. She was an ecologist by training. And Dr. Samantha Hindle, who is a neuroscientist as well, and is now senior content lead at Open Archive. And so she's like we all ended up in open science, coming from academia. And I'm the one that they kind of picked up the project, and with them we built an organization that is today. And this is me as a Mozillian. The Mozilla used to be involved in science, and I own them. A lot of like the opportunity to really get to know a global group of people that are very passionate about bringing change to public interest technology. So not just in academia, but actually media. And this is my fellow cohort from 2018. And I live in Portland, Oregon with my husband and my 2 children, who keep me very busy and give me a lot of sickness and bugs. So I'm a little sick. I might have to take breaks and drink water. Those are good opportunities. If anyone has questions or comments, please do unmute. I can't see the platform, but I am positive that there is enough people here that can help facilitate that. I live, as I mentioned, in what's today called the Portland metro area in Portland, Oregon, in the United States. I'm originally from Italy, but I want to acknowledge that the original inhabitants of this land are many, actually, native people: the Multnomah, the Catapnet, Clackamas, Tumwater, Chinook, Watlala, Tualatin, and many others that have made this land their home and are still the caretakers of this land. And I will also take this opportunity to thank them, but also to acknowledge that colonialism is not an event of the past, but is an active and ongoing project of the present. And so we need to constantly think about how are we showing up to our environments, how we're upholding oppression in everything that we do. And this is going to be part of my talk as well. So I don't see stars very much here in Oregon, but I grew up looking at the sky in Sardinia, Italy, when clouds are not as often present in the sky. And one of my favorite practices, even when I'm not looking actually physically at stars, is blue sky dreaming. So the time that I spend in what I call the observatory of my mind and really thinking about what is it I really want, that I wanted to see at the end of this, at the end of my life, at the end of this work, at the end of like humanity. And when I don't get too philosophical and I come back to what I'm actually doing, and I allow myself to dream big and to get past the constraints of time and disillusionment, I arrive in a world that is liberated from oppression. So a space in which anyone is free to express their truth and bring their knowledge to the world. And you may be wondering, what does that have anything to do with research and peer review and the neuroscience or anything that I've been doing? But actually, as I am reminded often by many people, one of them, Dr. Antoinette Foster, who's a friend and honestly a mentor that I had in my life, is that oppression is everywhere. It's not just in the outside of what we're doing. It is present in every single environment that we're at, and that includes science, includes scholarship. And because science is made of people, it does not happen in a vacuum. So oppression exists there too. And in fact, we can take a step forward in thinking about how science and scientific practices have not only evolved in parallel with a history dominated by oppression and inequities, but have actively contributed to legitimize practices of systemic discrimination, exploitation, and even extermination of entire groups of people. And to this day, it's not a thing of the past, but scientific practices and science and tools are still used to oppress, thrive on exclusion as an indicator of excellence, and see labor as a commodity. This is not to shame science. I love science. It's just to say that we need to be thinking about ways in order to truly make change, to bring equity in the spaces that we're at. And so I'm just gonna, I promise I'm gonna get to the part about peer review, but I also want to share a piece of text that I'm gonna read aloud. And I invite you all that if this can be triggering, to take care of yourself and step away from the computer if that is what you need. The consensus of scientific literature is that Native Americans have a unique romance with alcohol, and conclude that as high as 95% drink alcohol with a very high rate linked to suicide ideation. This is an opening sentence of a peer-reviewed paper that was published in 2018 in the journal System Integrated Neuroscience. And I have to let it sit for a minute every time I read this. If you have the opportunity and the heart to keep reading this article, you'll find that the article goes on to say that there is something inherent about alcoholism in Native American people, basically describing that they are genetically predisposed to alcoholism, and the solution that they put forward to prevent alcoholism and suicide is to genetically screen children for this gene that is responsible for alcoholism. And there is very little to none, actually, no consideration about history, about all that Native Americans have to experience because of colonialism and genocide. This is not only a tool that kind of continues to uphold oppression of Native American peoples, it is also bad science. The phase 1 of the Human Genome Project has completely debunked the idea that there is any genetic correlation between race and genes. So there is more variabilities within the race, a certain race, which is a human made-up socioeconomic concept, and the genetic makeup of a human. So it is not only harmful to bring things like that, but it is also scientifically flawed. So the reason why I bring this up is why am I bringing this up? Is that this is an article that made it to my desk. It was peer-reviewed. And so peer reviewers read this article and thought that we should publish this in the journal. Editors thought it was in its state deemed publishable. But even before that, colleagues probably saw presentations of this research. This is a governmentally funded research. So this specific research was funded by, I don't remember which agency of the US government. So other grant reviewers have reviewed this paper and thought, sure, this is a good question to ask. Let's do a research project about it. So all of this to say that science is made of people that have our own values, our own beliefs and assumptions, and that are created within a certain cultural education. And these make the fabric of science. It's us, right? So everywhere we show up as people, we bring those values to what we do, and that is in research as well. So when I first got into learn about open science, I was a PhD student. This is a photo from 2016 in Washington, D.C. It's a conference that no longer exists. It's called OpenCon. And that was the moment that I can track back to when I not only learn about open science and what opening up science could do in the concept of access, but really truly met a fantastic heterogeneous group of people from 63 different countries that were there to fight for a better world and better science, for a better knowledge systems. And I had never questioned that in my own practice. I was doing activism on the side and then science, and it was like, oh, that's different. Science is objective. Mm-hmm. And I just remember my brain just like feeling when I first learned about what some of these people, the work that they were doing. And at that moment, I didn't really realize it, but later on, with more help and support from people they've been doing the work for decades. Also, open science is not the solution to that. Open science doesn't mean equitable science by default, and it doesn't erase systemic oppression as it is, right? So even when we add the word open to things, we still have to understand and explore what are the ways that we are actually not supporting, a better science from the point of view of justice and equity. And Some may even say that equity is a dream in academia. Dr. Dolores Amanantres in this opinion piece, and I'm quoting here, reading the quote, mentioned that scientific system has never been designed for equity, and institutions focus only on improving access and optics, but they look like they are changing, but the same people retain control. So we should not be mistaking access for change, which sometimes I do still see in a lot of open science spaces, including the work that I do. Like, I constantly ask, like, how am I actually not creating better means for equity? And some days I feel like Dr. Amenantres, disillusioned, and some other days, like today, I feel like change is possible, and we can actually work towards that future. So all of this, now I'm going to enter more into like the work that we do, but why is peer review the element to focus on to actually bring this change? That question I've been asked many times. I ask myself, what am I doing? Why am I working on peer review anyway? And I think that there is a lot that peer review, the process of peer review holds and brings a lot of opportunities to bring real transformational change that could be brought to other sides of academia. But before I go into this second section, this was kind of a more of an exploratory. I wonder if there are, I haven't seen any comments, but I'm just going to shift back. Is there anyone that has comments or question? And Roshama, please let me know if there are.
None so far.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go back to where I was. You still see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so what is peer review? I think we had a poll here and asked people if you have ever been a reviewer for different research objects. But in general, peer review could be defined as the evaluation of work from one or more people with similar competencies and as the producers of the work. And it functions as a form of self-regulation by qualified members of a profession within the relevant field. And this is a definition from Wikipedia. And this is a cartoon that is often used to describe what peer review is. And it's interesting to me because every time I look at it, there are new nuances that I discover. And, this is a process that is often felt as a dreadful process, just a stage of passage to get to that final goal of publications. There is death at the end of it. So the kind of optics of like the publish or perish, which academia has done pretty well at kind of implementing. There's this researcher going through really seems like a war zone, like people that are armed and ready to attack them, and they are unarmed. Pretty much everyone looks like the same ethnicity, at least from a skin color point of view. So there's a lot there that I think actually truly represent what peer review in its general state is. And that's not what I want. That's not what I want peer review to be. I want to have a dream that peer review is actually a place in which researchers are there to support one another and to improve knowledge. Because I do believe that a lot of us got into research and science because we want to make a better world. Therefore, why are we there just trying to tear each other apart? That was something that I saw in academia, in my own experience. And when I learned about open science, I was like, I don't want this. I want a constructive aspect of peer review. And so then I bolded that qualified members, because questions we can ask ourselves about peer review is like, who are those qualified members anyway? Who decides who is qualified and who is not? And we don't have a lot of data because peer review often is handled by journals and journal editors who have private lists of reviewers. And the most common, at least in the life sciences way of doing review, is what's called single anonymized. So the reviewers are not known to the rest, but the reviewers know who the author is, but nobody knows who the reviewers are. So there is not a lot of data, but there are a few studies, and this starts to be dated at the moment. But this is a study from 2019 in which they looked at what they call gatekeepers, and it's senior editors, reviewer editors, and peer reviewers for a total of 8,000 that reviewed from eLife between 2012 and 2017. eLife is a journal. At the time, it was kind of more of a standard life science journal. Now they made some changes. But what they saw is that there was 2/3 of the gatekeepers were male. So there is a big gender difference. And also that 60% of these gatekeepers were from North America, 32% from Europe, and very smaller percentage from the rest of the world. Shy of 6% in Asia and less than 2% from South America, Oceania, and Africa. I believe that wouldn't change that much if we were able to actually pull real data from all journals. But again, we don't have that data to prove it. But this is not representing the diversity of researchers around the world. So we have people with a lot of power and control that are very homogeneous from a gender and geographical representation point of view. And from a career point of view as well. Again, not a lot of data about career point or who the reviewers are, but this is a study by Gary McDowell and colleagues that surveyed almost 500 early career researchers, defined as anyone engaged in research who is not recognized as an independent leader. And they found that most of them have never peer-reviewed a manuscript. But then when so this is like, I guess it's like half of them had never peer-reviewed, and then a fifth had done a couple. But then when they asked, have you actually reviewed a manuscript, but, via, another person, for example, reviewed for your boss or PI, principal investigator, then the numbers increased. So many of these early career researchers had in fact reviewed, but they had not been recognized for it. So they call this phenomenon as ghostwriting. So we can say that peer review actually has a lot of opportunities for improvement from an equity point of view, from a sustainability point of view. These are just a few points that we try to tackle in the work, and many people are complaining about reviewers and editors themselves. There are not enough reviewers. The truth is that there are enough reviewers. There are not enough reviewers that they want to contact. But that's my opinion. The composition of the reviewer pool is homogeneous and over many dimensions. Again, the data is not fully present there, but there's a lot that backs it up. And most reviewers are male, middle-aged career, and they're considered experts. And they never receive formal training, which is also an interesting aspect of that we're just assumed to know how to provide feedback to one another, just because we may have expertise in that field. And the truth is that there are a lot of bad reviews out there. And the impact of those bad reviews is beyond what we may even imagine. So, for example, these are just real reviews. You can read it for yourself. That could go from, useless comments like the paper is simply manure to very harmful comments attacking the author's identity. Such as those here in the bottom, like the author's last name sounds Spanish. I didn't read the manuscript because it's full of bad English. These are reviews that actually reached authors. So the editors let these reviews go. And there are parts of a study that surveyed participants from science, technology, engineering, and math fields. And they found that these unprofessional reviews, surprise, surprise, disproportionately harm people that have already experienced discrimination and marginalization in their field. So driving them out of academia. And so this is to say that not that training might solve what these people do, but there's just a lot to fix in peer review. So I'm very motivated to continue to work in this area for that bigger dream of equity, of bringing more equity in scholarship in general. So I'm going to stop here. I'm going to enter like another section here talk about preprints and open peer review. I wonder if there is any thoughts or questions before I move on to this second half.
No questions so far.
Thank you. All right. So I'm curious to know if anyone has reviewed preprints or knows what a preprint is. Does anyone would like to unmute and share, or maybe in the chat?
So we have people filling out the poll now. It's working. And so far, no one has clicked on preprints yet. So.
Okay. This is what I learned in that conference at OpenCon in 2016. I came home completely with mind blown by everything that I heard. And I was like, what is the one thing that I can do while I'm incredibly, busy in my PhD research? And preprints felt like a tangible thing to work on. So What is a preprint? Preprint is a manuscript that is a scientific manuscript that is uploaded by the authors to a public server. The preprint contains data and methods, but has not yet undergone journal organized peer review. So posting preprints online exists since 1991, when the archive, which was the first preprint server, was set up. And then it's like, hey, we have the internet. Why we can just put our manuscript out there without having to wait months and months and years for the journals to handle it. And that was kind of a way to plant the flag and be like, I'm here first. That is what people say. I was like 6 years old in 1991, but then the preprint servers kind of evolved in the life sciences, which is the field I'm in, or I was in. Preprint really didn't take until like 2014, and when we started seeing like an increase in like the number of preprint servers that are out there, and now there are like so many preprint servers that I can't even count. But just to bring clarity to the process, I don't know how many of you have published a manuscript formally through journals, but the process is, again, going through this channel of weapons. But you submit to a journal, you may be lucky and get reviewers that say, sure, we should publish it here, or you may be unlucky and say all the reviewers is like reject. Then you go to a second journal, or you reformat, or you revise, and then maybe 2 reviewers are like, great, and then the reviewer number 2 is like, no. So then you reformat, you resubmit, go to the other journal. So this process can take a long time. And in fact, I think that the average was 6 months, but again, it depends on what discipline you're looking at. It can take up to years before that manuscript, piece of knowledge and research that could be built upon by others, reaches the light, the public, right? And even then, when it reaches the light, it may not be accessible. So this is what a lot of Focus Open Science and Open Access movement has done, is focusing on access. So it is behind the paywall. You can't read that manuscript unless you pay. And we can have a whole new talk about open access policies and all of the difference, but that is like the most frustrating and common one, where you have the research behind the paywall. What preprints do is that actually reduce the time a lot. If depending on the preprint server, it can take up to maybe 2 days, but the preprint, if there is a minimum amount of screening that can happen depending on the preprint server, but it does reach the light much faster. And so what that means is that it allows for more rapid scrutiny. And what I got excited when I learned about this is like, it can allow the community to provide feedback when it's still useful. When we provide feedback to something that is already published and it's a version of record, there's not much we can do about it. Like, it's done. It's written in stone. That's it. It's a permanent record. But with preprints, they're versionable. They're citable. We could continue to build upon their science and research and knowledge, which is the actual way in which knowledge advances. So preprints are growing in terms of like how much they're published. There's a minimal amount compared to the amount of manuscripts that are just published in research journals, but it is happening more and more. And the pandemic gave a really big push and reason for research to appear faster. There's also a breakdown across countries. It's not the same across all countries, but we see similar trends, and this is now this plot will be different if we include the 2024, but I don't have that data, so this is from my manuscript in 2023. I just wanted to quickly go through like common benefits and common concerns about preprints. And the most common benefit that people see is, again, that kind of fast and free to read and to access. Free to read research manuscripts, so you can have it and anyone can read it and build upon it. The greater visibility, the claim of the priority of work, which is kind of also taught as scoop protection, increased citation, opportunity for early feedback. It is a perceived benefit that I obviously really believe in. And proof of productivity in grants, for example, you can cite preprints, so you can put them there. Common concerns, on the other hand, are fear of being scooped, which is interesting because it's also a benefit for some. So I'm afraid that if I post a preprint, that someone else will just repost it somewhere else, which is not happening anymore. Incompatibility with journal policy. which is also changing very much. I think 91% of journals in the life sciences have journal policies that are compatible with preprints. Some actually only review if they're preprints before. Lawyerability and credibility, lack of peer review is a common concern. Again, interesting, because what do we mean by peer review? And it takes too long, which I actually don't understand why that is a concern, because it's not that long to post a preprint. But I have to go back and read what exactly they meant in this manuscript. So I work a lot from like the bottom up, and I'll tell you a little bit more about PREreview in a minute. But top down, changing policy, and so funders, people that give out the money and have control over how things should be done, changing their policy to support preprints, to enforce the use of preprints, like the Gates Foundation has done, HHMI has done, the Aligning Science Across Parkinson has done, and other funders. Making preprints mandatory for researchers does also work, increasing that. But I really believe that there is a value about preprints that should be more known across researchers, and we should leverage the access to preprints, not just because someone forces us to do, but because there's real value for us as researchers. So this is the biggest value that I saw to preprints, which is, I just already hinted to it, which is that they could be reviewed by anyone in different contexts, and we can experiment with changes to that peer review process that is handled by journals, and we can regain control, us as researchers, about what does it mean to validate a work. How do we bring more eyes, more transparency to the process of peer review by focusing on research objects such as preprints that are available to us, and the author retains control over them. So now, I don't think that adding the word open to peer review is going to solve. Again, it's the same thing of open science. So we need to do this push for changing peer review with the same amount of thoughtfulness about what does it mean, what are the systems within the process of peer review that I really want to fight against and to chip at in this bringing of change. And just super brief, this is a reference. If someone is curious about what open peer review means, it also means so many different things to different people. It's just about the openness of identities of reviewers, the openness of the report, and there are experiments of all of these different various ideas of opens across different organizations and journals. We are a PREreview, as I'm going to show you in a minute, or an open platform where there's no journal affiliation, just anyone can review preprints. So just to say here that open peer review does not necessarily enhance trust and transparency just because it's open. Sometimes when people say, oh, I need to improve trust in research, they mean more gatekeeping. I need to know who these people are in order to trust the research. And so I like to flip that question. It's like, how do we create systems and spaces that in which people that have been traditionally pushed away from the process trust that there is going to be value in their time and expertise. And transparency can also create more barriers to participation. I want to be very transparent, therefore I'm going to force everybody to do this one way. You have to put your name. But again, we do not live in a world in which just being transparent with our name works for everybody. So there are a lot of considerations in how we rebuild the systems or we rethink about the system that we need to bring with us to truly kind of fight inequities. So that was a lot. I'm going to give a tour of the platform in a minute, but I wanted to just show you what we are after here. So PREreview operates as a nonprofit via fiscal sponsorship. So we are right now 4 people. I'll show you the team, 5 full-time people plus 2 part-time people. And we're all working to transform the systems of scholarly peer review and publishing, and replacing entrenched hierarchies with equitable, accessible, and transparent practices. So we're really trying to be after system change. We can feel like a lot to do, but we're not the only one. And we work with other organizations, individuals, because those are, only together we can truly achieve this dream and this change. We do our work part, and PREreview as different components to the work we do, and you kind of think about it in 3 pillars. So we prepare training and resources together with the community to reflect on how can we be better reviewers, more constructive and more socially conscious peer reviewers. We organize peer reviews on platforms, not as fancy as this one. Usually we use Zoom to review together with researchers that join from all over the world. And then we publish the review collaborative written. And it's one of my favorite activities, facilitating those calls. And then we also have an infrastructure, open source infrastructure for anyone. The only requirement is that you have an ORCID identifier, which I'm wondering if this is something that you don't need to be a researcher to have an ORCID, which is something that someone asked us, oh, my grandmother can have an ORCID ID. And I'm like, great. I want your grandmother to review if they or she has the opportunity and knowledge and time to share what her experience may be, and it has feedback that is valuable. So that is by design. And the feedback that can be provided right now is primarily to preprints, but as of 3 months ago, datasets. So datasets could also begin to be reviewed on pre-review. I'm just gonna have this slide and then move on to do a live demo. But this is just to say that, again, we develop resources with the community, and we have a number of partners that we develop resources with, and those are available at prereview.org/resources, and more languages are being added every month. And we also run a Champions program. It's a yearly program. We just got our new cohort, 2026, and they're going through the program right now. But every year we offer training and also support for the community to become amplifiers of what they think should be the adaptation of what we do, or experimentation of what open peer review means and should be in their communities. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I guess I wanted to go through this. These are all of the platforms and main collaborators with which we have kind of integrations at different levels. And I will show you in the demo a few of these. But the slide deck contains screenshots with explanation of which one of the things. I'm not going to have probably time to go through all of them, but I invite you to maybe later on to look through the slide deck and see, how do we think about those features. Okay, as I go, I'm going to move to, I guess, this part and go to the website. Okay, so this is how the website looks like at the moment. We're constantly refining it. One big change is that as of last year, now the website is being localized and translated and localized to Latin American Spanish and Brazilian Portuguese. And this is an ongoing project that continues to be updated with the support of the community. And this year, we're going to focus on French and Arabic. So all of the workflows and most of the resources have been translated already. So the primary activity for the platform is to review a preprint. I'm going to use our sandbox.prereview.org, which is, what a sandbox is more than I do. You can all try this out and just publish a review without actually publishing a review. So you'll see the whole process without doing it for real. Anyone can use the sandbox. So I'm going to use the sandbox right now. Actually, but before I do that, I go to the real website and show you, I haven't logged in. Cool. So let me just do that. As I mentioned, login is done through ORCID. So if you have an ORCID identifier, you use it the first time to create your record, and then you'll have access to your profile. And this is something that I don't recommend using if you're showcasing, because when you screen share, like I'm doing right now, you'll see all my data, my information, that some of it that is private. For example, so let's just back up. When you create a pre-review account, you get a profile with your ORCID ID and your real name, or the name that you attach to your ORCID, but you also get a pseudonym. And what that is, so if I go to view pseudonym profile, this is what you all will see. I never publish with my pseudonym, but I am Pink Jaguar. And if I don't share it like I'm doing right now, nobody will ever know who Pink Jaguar is. And that is because we believe that in order to give people really tools to participate in peer review, they should have a way to do that anonymously. But what pseudonym does is that actually not completely anonymous. If you violate a code of conduct, if I violated a code of conduct, our team can dig down and find out who that researcher or person is, and we could enforce our code of conduct, not by revealing who they are, but by, for example, banning them from the website. That has not, I think, happened once so far. And there are a bunch of other features here that I'm not going to go through right now, but they are meant to, we're going to refine them more and more to create more opportunities for people to connect and matchmake who needs review and who has the skills, time, and expertise to review them. One important thing about ORCID is that we're connected with ORCID. And what that means is that if you go in your profile and you connect to your ORCID record, whenever you review something, it will be automatically put under your ORCID record and under peer review. So you'll have a public record of your reviews if you chose your public name when you publish. Okay. I'm going to just now go through the sandbox and show you how you review a preprint. You can also review a data set, but I'm going to do the preprint workflow because it's the most established. So when you're starting, the first question is like, what are you reviewing? And all you need to do is to get a DOI. We are connected with 31 preprint servers right now. You go to About page and they're listed there. If you're getting a DOI from not a preprint server, it will give you an error. But for example, here it tells you what a DOI. You can also use a URL. So I'm going to put this URL here from that. I just went on bioRxiv and selected a neuroscience preprint. And I'm going to click continue. And it shows you what preprint it is. And if that's the right one, you're going to start. If you're not logged in, here is when you have to authenticate through ORCID. And then it'll ask you a few questions. So with the community, we developed an entire workflow with questions that guide your review, asking things like, does the introduction explain the objective of the research? And you have opportunities to use Likert scale. It's mostly 5-point Likert scale. This first one is 3, but also to add options, optional reasoning of why that is. So then you continue and you answer all 11 questions. And at the end, it will put it all together into a review. But the idea is that it could be a guided process towards review. You can also use a light template that just, you can edit it in your editor, but we invite you to put a short summary, major issues and minor issues. And then, and we have here some help text about what are examples of good review behavior and good reviews. But the most common one is that people have already written the review somewhere. And so then they're just going to paste it. And here is when we upfront ask about AI usage. We want to know if you use AI to generate your review, not to edit the language, but to generate it. And if you do, there's a little change in the license. And I can answer that question if you're curious. The default is a CC BY 4.0 license. But if you did generate with AI, it's a CC 0. So then here you'll paste your review, check the formatting, and move forward. And here's when you pair the review, you can decide if you want to publish with your real name, connected to your ORCID ID, or your pseudonym. And here is an explanation of what a pseudonym is. I'm just going to do my real name. It asks you if you reviewed it alone. We love collaborative reviews. Maybe you reviewed it with someone else, which is really fun. And if you have, we ask a few questions, one of which is that they actually know that you're doing that and adding them. And here you can enter the names of the people. You can copy from a list. Many of our club members, that there's a group of pre-reviewers that review together, have maintained list of reviewers, and they just copy and paste it here. And what that does is that, if I do Daniela Saderi and add my other email, well, is that it sends me, Daniela Saderi, an email, and I will have to authenticate that actually is, I did review that. And I can use my pseudonym. So the other reviewer also has options on how to show up in that review. And then, do you have any competing interests? We need to declare them if you do. And I'm almost at the end. You have to also say that you are abiding by the code of conduct. And this is the end. And the check, you can go back to every step if you want to change it. But then if you're happy with it, you can, and let me make sure, yes, I'm on Sandbox. You can publish the pre-review, and that will create a digital object identifier and a CC BY license. We use Zenodo as the backend, and I'm going to show you what that means. So if I go to, for example, this is a review that was published, when was this? 2 days ago. This review has a digital object identifier and a license, and is also, so the DOI is through dataset, and it's on Zenodo. So we have a collection of reviews on Zenodo, and that's where, you know, we can keep track of views, and it's basically the backend that we use for publishing. Okay, I think I'm gonna stop it here. I talked a lot. I should have done hide. Should have not. Sorry, I should have done that sooner. But I only have. If I go back to the slide, let me just stop. And I just have a few invitations for you all. These are some things that you can do if you want to join pre-review opportunities. You can create a club. You can go to the club page to read more. These are a group of reviewers that review together. I'd love to hear if there are anyone who has reviewed datasets and would like to try the dataset review. Right now, we're only connected to Dryad, which is a data repository, but our goal this year to expand that collection of repositories that we connect with. And also, we just launched our strategic plan, and we're really, really keen to hear from the community. If you're available on February 11, we would love to have you there. And it's just an opportunity to meet the team and learn more and help us shape how the next 3 years are going to go for pre-review. This is the whole team, and I thank them so much. Up here is staff, and here is the 2 co-founders and the rest of the advisory committee, and some funders that I very much thank. And I have some links to join in other stuff at pre-review, but thank you all so much, and I love to hear from you. Take any questions for the rest of the meeting together today.
Thank you so much, Daniela. We do have a few questions. The first one is, how easily can people find these reviews?
Yeah. Maybe I should actually continue sharing, shouldn't I? Okay, so that is a good question. If I go back to here, for example, let's take that. No, this is a sandbox, so don't need that. But let's take this review. This was a review of invasive cancer cells. So I'm just going to look for that preprint. Actually, there's a better way. What am I doing? So I can go to read the preprint from the preprint, the page on pre-review. Some preprint servers display the links to the review next to the preprint, and that is great. We love it when that happens. We have a few preprint servers in which we're connected in a very particular way, and one of them is this. So if you look, for example, this is bioRxiv. It says that there is a community review, and it's, you know, you can link to that and go and read it. So this is one way the preprint servers are helping finding these reviews next to the actual report. Another way we are connected with bioRxiv, CL preprints, and preprints.org is that authors at the time of submission, they can request feedback from pre-review. I didn't show this, but it is an important feature, because you can go and look at all of the requests, like the list of that's not what I meant. The list of preprints that have been, for which there have been requests, and you can filter by topic. This is integration with OpenAlex. You can filter by language and say, for example, maybe you don't know what you want to review. You have time and you want to review something that you know, and you can search through here. But it is a good question. So how do you find reviews? Reviews are also listed on EuroPMC, which is another tool to search for published research. And we're working with the ecosystem to make this the option to review also available. Like, for example, there is no button next to a preprint that says review this preprint anywhere. We're not the only service that does preprint review, but we are the only one who allows anyone to review. Other groups do preprint review, but they still have an editorial group, and they have their own reviewers, which is a great practice, but it is still, to us, is more like a journal. Yeah. I hope I answered your question.
The next question is, who is using the platform?
Yeah. So we just published last year as our stats page, and this is not showing on purpose the access to who the review. Well, it's not. I actually don't even have access to the reviewers' real names and things are, but that page is locked. But if we don't collect like data about who people are and display it, but in your profile you can add your career level and your geographical location. We do not collect data about affiliation. That's on purpose. So from people that have used, actually, I can't share my screen for that. Sorry, because I would show you my password. So from people that have used that have inputted that data, we see that a lot of them are researchers based in from the countries are North America, Brazil, Europe, and as of last year, there has been a huge influx of visitors, not preprint published, but visitors from China, which we believe may be bots, but those are just visitors of the website. So if you look at, that's like the visitors, but those that publish the reviews are primarily people that identify as early mid-career researchers based in North America, Brazil, and Europe. I can stop sharing and open up that bit to show if that's helpful. And we also have data about our community involvement. So like when people that come to engagements such as the training, and that is always optional, but we try to keep track more in those opportunities when people have, again, like we can ask them, can you share with us what's your career level, what's your geographical locations? And then we see that a lot of them are researchers. I think we have representation from 67 different countries, and most of them is what we define early career researchers or mid-career.
Daniela, another question is, are students encouraged to use the platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. In fact, if you go to, I think it's goal 3 of our strategic plan. So we have done a lot of the workshops that we do are with researchers in so institutions that kind of call us to do the training with them, or we pair and we kind of collaborate, and mostly as being graduate students, so PhD students and sometimes postdocs. But there is not an integrated way to like bring PREreview to the classrooms. There are more and more training that are happening around peer review, even in undergrads programs, which is really encouraging. But what we're going to do for the next 3 years is collaborate with some of these groups and universities to understand what can we do to provide better tools for learning contexts. And the other group that we're going to focus on is patients and patient advocates. We have a little bit of a year pilot that we have done with RERES1, which is a group of organizations supported by the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, to understand is there a way that we can create more value for patients and patient advocates and caregivers to provide feedback to research. So those are the 2 focus groups for the next 2 years. But I'd love to hear more about ways that you think that we can do better. And just to say, the platform is completely free, will remain free, and we're not harvesting data. It is a nonprofit, and we do try to actually compensate people. So if you want to participate in user research with us, you can, and we offer always honorarium. Even the champions have a pretty good honorarium that is offered that doesn't compensate for the full time, but we always try to compensate for time and expertise.
Daniela, just also to reiterate, we were fortunate to have a nice long conversation in person back in October.
Yeah.
And I do recall us discussing that, one of the great things about students being involved is that they can get involved at an early time, they can build up their portfolio, they can get experience, and that, expanding like a contribution beyond being an author on a publication.
Yeah. It's interesting though, because I still see a lot of fear. So every year, and I don't do this as often because I don't have the capacity, but OHSU, it's my graduate institution. And when I was there, I started like actually trying to bring like journal club and preprint journal club as a course at PREreview, as like something that could, not PREreview at the university, but right now there's a new class, and it's like it's called Scientific Logic, and in that context, I've been invited now for 4 years in a row to give a presentation about PREreview and kind of a demo similar to what I just did now, but more on the training side. And this year and last year, but this year I was surprised. There were maybe 35 students. I'm talking about like master's and PhD students and medical students that have gone through peer review. And because they brought me in now, that are only reviewing preprints, and they have done an amazing job. I'm reading these reviews and they're great. And I'm like, okay, I just presented about PREreview, and who would like our support to publish that, right? And you can use your pseudonym, you can use your real name, you can make a club. So it's like OHSU Scientific Logic Club, and it doesn't even show who you are. But those are amazing reviews. The authors are going to want to know about them. And nobody wanted to do it. They were very afraid and scared that even though the reviews were great, that they would somehow feel, the authors would not want them. And to me, that was sad, because one of the things that made me to stick to and start PREreview is because I started sending my reviews of preprints to authors via email. And I just got an incredible response, like invitation to be a postdoc in their lab. They were like, oh my gosh, you cared enough to send me this. So I was trying to share that opportunity. But anyway, I think there's still so many barriers that students face, and they're just afraid, and they don't think that they have enough expertise to share. And that's really what I want to help change.
Thank you. The next question is, somebody asked, the app is already available. So to confirm that you did a live demo of an active app.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The PREreview platform has been up for years. So I just showed you, if you're publishing a real review, don't use the sandbox. Go to prereview.org. But if you want to just try it out, maybe you want to try the workflow for a data set review, which is brand new, developed last year with the community, and you want to provide feedback, you can use sandbox at prereview.org, and you don't worry about publishing a DOI of something that is a test. If that happens, you can reach out to us at help@prereview.org, and we can take it down. But it requires that we go to Zenodo and we tell, sorry, Zenodo, that was a mistake, and you take it down. We don't like to take down DOIs often if they're real. So that's why the sandbox is there. But yes, it's not an app. We don't have an app version, but that's a good idea. It's only on the web, on the browser.
Next question is, can you talk a bit more about how data sets are reviewed on PREreview? Are these public or private data sets?
Yeah, so right now they're all public data sets published on Dryad. So Dryad is a data repository and it's not the only one. There's so many data repositories. And what they do is that they publish the data set, and then the data set gets a DOI. And so we do the same thing. Like, we just pull in information, metadata from the data set. And then the review of the data set is actually only structured at the moment. There are, I don't remember how many questions, but there are a series of questions that you go through. So if I share my screen again, window. So if you go to review a data set, you have to put a DOI of a Dryad. I'm just going to copy the example one because I don't have Dryad open, or a URL of a Dryad data set without the quotes. And it will, no, I'm not in the sandbox also. I've already started this because I was demoing someone else. But there are just a series of questions I am at the end. Apologize. So this is what's happening. So there are this, I'm going backwards because again, it remembers that I started reviewing this one before. And so you can go on and answer this Likert scale question similar to the structured review. Now you can say, oh my gosh, there is no way that every data set is going to have different questions that you ask depending on the discipline. Very true. So our goal is to start understanding from the community of data set experts, like what would be a valuable way to bring more community reviews of data sets given their heterogeneity. And we really think that we can work with groups and provide different templates for different kinds of data sets. But we have a lot to learn. So if you know about data sets, please do reach out to us at community@prereview.org, and we'd love to talk to you for 20 minutes and offer you an honorarium. And I know we're at time, but I can't.
We have a few more questions.
Yes, I'm available.
I'm particularly interested in the data sets. I'm a statistician by training. And so are there questions there? For example, I worked in biostatistics for a long time, and we would review data sets. It was like a regular job from clinical trials. And so the question I have is, do you also check for data set, for example, accuracy of data, misentered data? What tool do they use to check the data? Is it Python? Is it SAS? Is it R? Is it some other Open Refine? Is that information collected?
Yeah, I don't remember on top of my mind the exact wording of each questions. I think we do not integrate with tools for data set checking. And we do not ask, like, what tool are you using? I don't think there is that question. But again, it is a brand new workflow that was developed by my product team with the community. And folks at the Data Rescue Project gave a lot of feedback. So I think that I'd love if you would like to talk to our product team and provide your feedback if you go through the workflow. But another big goal of, I think it's goal number 2, not sure now, the 4th strategic goal is to explore more what does it mean to review different modules of the research cycle. Because even preprints, like the idea that we in academia just review the end work and it's like a PDF static thing of research is so dynamic, and there's so much before that, and all the pieces, it's outdated, it doesn't work. And so a lot of people in the ecosystem are now coming together, hopefully, in a way that it's going to truly move the needle, to propose more integrated way to review different objects. So I'm very into wanting to, talking about, even at the meeting that we were together with OpenSci and PyOpenSci to integrate, how do we bring community review to software integrating with their models. And I think we will never be, the specialized as like PyOpenSci or OpenSci could be for these packages that they review. But I'm interested in understanding how all of these pieces and reviews can be visualized together and available for people to see in a coherent way and discovered. And also, how do we bring reviewers that might not have the depth of knowledge that allows them to review so granularly in some of these systems that are very, very specific and pages and pages on GitHub, which is great. But how do we bridge for communities that might just want to review more kind of superficially, or what is the mechanism that we can bring more eyes to it, but without a way you need to know everything about this data set or software or project or manuscript in order to provide feedback, because I don't believe that's true, that someone has to know everything. So kind of lowering the barriers. So I didn't answer your question, but I will go back and I can look up for you, but there are some questions that I'm sure that there are a lot that are missing, and that's exactly why in the next 3 years, we're going to try to partner. I'd love to find a group from the data umbrella if you're available to help us create better tools for data set reviews.
Absolutely. And this is something that, I could also share with the American Statistical Association, because, we work with data sets a lot.
Right.
And so this is a very related question, which is it acceptable to review parts of articles in which one has expertise rather than the whole article?
Yeah, that's a great question. Exactly. So many of you probably in this community are not new to the concept of reproducible notebooks and much more dynamic ways of sharing knowledge than the traditional PDF that everybody feels so attached to in my at least field in academia. Even the preprint is not revolutionary. It's just and so we are working with folks, for example, at CurveNote. They are really trying, and there have been many other organizations, but really trying to understand how what are all the different pieces and what are much more engaging way of sharing knowledge. So the CurveNote provide this ways of publishing research that are much more dynamic. You can dig into figures, links, and citations, and how do we bring the layer of review to these different components? One thing that I'm really conscientious, because I remember how we felt, I don't want to bring an experience to a reviewer that is okay, this is everything that this is being published around this topic. Go on and review what you want. I feel like that doesn't work. That's overwhelming. We already don't have people that have time. So how do we create an experience that can truly guide the reviewer to feel happy and they have actually the time and expertise to just contribute to that piece? And it's very clear that they can go deeper, but they can also be valued and appreciated and rewarded for that piece that they contribute. So right now, no. If you want, you can go on pre-review and review just to say, and you say, I'm just reviewing, these are my feedback and my expertise is in this. Some people write that in the text of the review, but there is no modularity in the workflow yet.
I think this really goes to show how complex the ecosystem is and how it's not a simple. Yeah. Next question is, who do you think is expert enough to review a particular preprint? I'm reading somebody's question. I find that there are not so many preprints published in my field of direct expertise, and I feel unsure of how far to venture out in reviewing preprints.
This is an interesting question. I don't have like a clear-cut answer. What I can provide are some examples. So we have been in leading workshops, and we sometimes there are very traditional, people that have been editors-in-chief of a journal for like years, and they came to our workshop and they were like, and we are at the point in the workshop in which we review together, and we have to choose a preprint. There are like 20 people in the room. We're not going to choose a preprint that everybody has what they believe expertise in. And so immediately they were like, oh, I don't have expertise in that preprint. That's not my field, and I doubt that we'll produce anything useful here. And I'm like, great, maybe, but we're in the context of a workshop, so we're just trying. And at the end of we guide, the feedback that we provide, and we piece together all the feedback from the room. And he had to admit, he was like, I am shocked. This is a really good review, even though there wasn't exactly the expertise. This is going to be so valuable to the authors. And I appreciated that because I see that in different ways, in different contexts where people are like, oh, I don't think I have the expertise. There's still something that but even if you think this is not exactly what I do, I think that we're always surprised to see how much cross and how much parallels there are between disciplines. And I want to just going a step forward again. What does it mean to bring also lived experiences to research? That is a piece of valuable feedback that we never or very rarely get. And if we get, it's kind of like a checkbox. Sure, we check with the patients to know what they think about this, or how do we kind of challenge ourselves in that idea of who is an expert. And again, it depends on what parts, but I have experienced when I published one of my PhD papers, I am 100% sure that none of the reviewers had any knowledge of Bayesian statistics. And they came back with reviews about how was the ferret fed and like asking questions that honestly were not major concerns about the credibility of the manuscript. That paper is out there with Bayesian statistics model that I don't believe were checked properly. So I wish that I could have said, hey, any Bayesian statisticians, I don't even care if you're not a neuroscientist or not, but can you check the model? Because I'm not so sure. So how do we bring those people from different communities together and give value to that feedback that might not happen in editorial context?
Daniela, you should totally have gone to the American Statistical Association.
I am not a statistician, so I even forgot what I did in that paper. But I remember getting the reviews and I'm like, what is this? Like, are you serious? It's like, this is the Journal of Neuroscience. And now I'm recorded forever with that comment. Great. Don't read my paper.
The next question, there's two more questions and they're mine, actually. So pre-review functionality is primarily right now on preprints and datasets. Is that correct? So not for, like, say, conference abstracts.
Well, that's a very good question because it's not like clear yet, but actually we did have, let me show my screen. One thing I didn't, what am I here? One thing I didn't show of the website is, which I think could be very helpful to talk about, it's the concept of clubs. So clubs are this group of people that review together, and what a club is made of, it's entirely up to you. And we have, I forgot how many clubs. We have a lot of clubs. Let let me go to the stats per. Well, this is the number of clubs, 45. Forgot the number. But there is one club that is a club. I was a former PREreview champion, Dr. Rosario Rogel Salazar, and they started this club last year, and it was only all of these reviews are abstract, conference abstracts. So they just sat together before the conference and reviewed all of these abstracts and published their review because the abstracts were published on Zenodo and labeled with the tag preprint. They were able to pull that DOI and metadata and review it. And so these are all, and they're in Spanish because that's what they are. The conference was in. But so while we don't have like an explicit pathway to just review conference abstract, as people have started, and that's exactly what we're trying to see, like experiment with specific groups and then figure out, can we create a separate, do we need to create maybe different language of what that workflow would look like, and how do we integrate this with a conference in a more efficient way? Stop sharing again.
That's amazing because, NumFocus has all these PyData conferences, SciPy, obviously you're familiar with that.
I am. I mean, in fact, we had actually, I think it wasn't SciPy. I think maybe it was SciPy. They were collaborating with CurveNote for their conference. And there was a talk that we had at some point to think about, like, can you try PREreview for this one? Then we're like, oh, we're just already overwhelmed. The conference coming up. I don't remember if it was SciPy, so don't quote me on that. But it was a software conference, and then they were like, let's try next year. So this year we're gonna reach out. But if you have thoughts, again, like we are a small team and we rely a lot on the community kind of engaging, and how can we then support that.
And one last question, which is, what challenges and or benefits are you facing with AI and reviews?
I was wondering why that hadn't come up yet. I was like, this is amazing. I almost got out of it without it. So definitely, the AI policy that I briefly mentioned in the workflow, so that it's mentioned in our code of conduct, is that we do not like say, oh, AI is like the enemy of everybody, but we would like to make a difference between what is a generated, like, if anyone just started just putting these preprints through AI and generate reviews and paste them in PREreview, which it is a risk that we are actually assessing how we would respond in that case, we wouldn't be bringing the value and the change that we're trying to bring. Also, I don't believe AI is able to capture the nuances that we would like review to pay attention to, which is not just like evaluating, I don't know, this figure format, or which I believe that AI is able to do some of that, but it's gonna miss a lot of like, I think for now, for example, like biases or I actually tried that paper that I shared the quote from. I put it through an AI tool that I'm not going to name. It's a specific AI tool for research. It's not ChatGPT. It's like specific for research, and look at the corpus of research. And I put it through that tool, and I wanted to see what the review would be like. Is this AI going to tell me this paper is scientifically flawed and also incredibly biased, and it's giving you options for like genetic editing and screening of children that is not like, there were so many horrible things about that paper, and it didn't. It came out with, oh, there's this, I don't know, check the number, the N value. And so, challenges, I think, that are going to be that if people, let's say that all of a sudden there's going to be rewards in terms of even just like, oh, funders are going to make it, so that you have to review preprints or whatever. Then what will stop someone from just doing that and not even mentioning we use AI to generate and just say no and then publish, right? We had a few instances in which it was clear that someone used generative AI, but it's hard. And this is a challenge that every publisher now has. And I think the way that we fight it is through information and through just explaining. For example, in our live reviews, when we collaborative review, as soon as AI became popular 3 years ago, people started putting chunks of text in our Google, collaborative notes document where they were copying and pasting the question into AI and giving us the answer. And we banned AI from those calls. Like, we said, like, we do not think that this is the value. We want real people here, and the value here is to be messy. It's okay to be messy and say messy, and we're going to think about language later. Yeah, sorry, I can talk a lot, but I think we're constantly updating ourselves about how we think that we can help the community use these tools in a way that is helpful really for people, and it doesn't produce harm.
Okay, one last question, which is, I have not yet read the 5-year strategic plan, even though I saw it pop up on my LinkedIn feed or somewhere. But the question is, there's just enormous potential for this review process, and how do you prioritize? Because it's across so many possibilities. How do you sort of focus on where to move forward?
I struggle with prioritization. That's why I have an amazing team. And I want to do everything all at once. And that's really, I'm glad that it's not just me. So that strategic plan took months and months. And I still think it's ambitious for 3 years. And there is a lot there, especially for the size of our team. And, we have funding, thankfully, mostly from the Gates Foundation at the moment, but what happens next? So I really want to focus on sustainability. But the prioritization, for example, of languages. So our product team, head of product Chad Sansing, is amazing at prioritizing and really data-driven, like decision-making. So love it. He's superstar. And so is Chris Wilkinson, our head of technology, and our community groups. They know how to prioritize. So I basically delegate that. It's like, what to do. So that's like my easy answer. But in truth, like, for example, for localization and translation, we were like, what do we start with? And we looked at, and we were like, well, we get a lot of visitors from Brazil and Latin America and, other countries in Latin America. We are integrated with Cielo preprints, which, integration where authors can request feedback. We're getting a ton of requests of Brazilian Portuguese preprints and Spanish Portuguese. And Latin American Spanish preprints. So we should prioritize that. The next languages we prioritize are Arabic and French. And it's because we actually have collaborations in countries in which those are the primary languages. But these are like, we have cases for like why we should actually translate into Indonesians first, because there are like Indonesia is doing great work in open access and preprints, and we would like to figure out how to lower the barriers for folks to engage, because we don't believe English. So, but that's like, one of the things. There are two audiences, like students and patients. Students, I think, makes a lot of obvious sense. People even ask about it. Patients is just something that I really, truly believe in as we engage, that we should have more, but it's unclear yet if they think that there is value to them, because I don't want to extract, right, the information or knowledge and time. So it is more of a risky goal to have, but one that I think is worth exploring and doing, and kind of investigating what it could be to have more patients providing feedback to research, not even just the preprint, but like at the earlier stages of the research ideation. So I don't prioritize very well. That's a kind of short answer for it, but we try our best with the KRs to be very specific about what is our goal at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's amazing. It just reminds me, I worked on clinical trials for, more than 10 years in pharmaceutical companies, and there's actually no mechanism in place that I know of. We know in clinical trials, we collect adverse events, whatever side effects a patient experiences. But once that drug is approved and out there, there aren't always long-term safety studies, and, patients experience different things, and there's nowhere really where that data is being collected. So the use cases are just endless.
Yeah, and just like also like it's not just for drugs, right? It's for any, like, why are you researching, like, in the case of indigenous communities, those are like the vampire projects where it's over and over, where academics go and researchers just extract the blood samples, and it's unclear how is this the output of this research going to be useful to the communities? Like, did you work with the community? Like, what, So I really, it goes really deep into this, because academia is built and on extraction of knowledge and exploitation and exclusion. Not all of it. There's amazing parts of science, but there are these practices that are like, I'm the researcher up here, you are the patient, you are whatever the subject, and all of these power dynamics are reproduced across the whole life research cycle. And so like, how do we bring not only like these voices sooner, but in a way that they truly are valued and sought after? Like, I need as a researcher to know, what is your experience with this? Can be valuable? Because otherwise, why are we even doing research, right? If it's not useful to the people we're supposedly trying to help.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and it's a good note to end on. Danielle, thank you so much for sharing about PREreview. I will let you know when the recording is available, when it's uploaded. I may even split some of the recording, like in terms of when you did the demo. So if people want to watch the demo specifically, they can get to it. But we will be in touch. And yes, I mean, I can put on the list discussion about data as it's been a big part of the work that I've done over the years.
Yeah. Thank you. I love it. And seriously, like anyone who is, I hope you join the Slack. The Slack that we have is, if you go on the website, down at the footer, there's join our Slack, and it's a place in which people just share. I don't love Slack, but that was the community chose when we made a survey. But it's a place where people share events and knowledge and questions, that you can give feedback, and we can organize some user research. We'd like to really learn more about how to provide better services for community-led review of data sets. So thank you so much for hosting me. This was an incredible opportunity. And sorry, I talked a lot. Hopefully this was helpful in some way.
It was great. Thank you.
Thank you.